In life, typically when you're learning about something, with increased amount of knowledge comes an easier ability to make a decision about what is next. But what I find in watches is it's actually the opposite, because once you learn about the overwhelming amount of watches available for you, it sometimes can just be very difficult to make the next decision. And the watch that we're looking at today is one that might look familiar in terms of its case and the brand on the dial. But when looking at the dial, we have an exotic one and one you may have never seen before from this brand. In the world of watches, there aren't many models that are more ubiquitous than that of the Seiko SARBs. Models that have earned the title as being some of the best everyday watches that you can get for $500, if not the best. But with their relative affordability and their versatility, I personally become a bit exhausted with seeing them just everywhere. And again, this is not a statement that speaks to any of the shortcomings of the SARBs, but more about its success in captivating a large number of enthusiasts to actually purchase them. Yet today we have a Japanese domestic market Seiko SARB model that is a bit of an enigma, being hard to locate or purchase, the Seiko SARB037. A watch coming in a familiar package with its case, but an exotic dial that brings something quite unique to the table. But looking at this watch, we have a case size of 38 millimeters, case thickness of 11.5 millimeters, lug width of 20 millimeters, lug to lug of 44.6 millimeters. We have a sapphire crystal, water resistance of 100 meters, and an automatic Seiko 6R15 within. Now, when trying to pinpoint the key attributes that have led to the Seiko SARB's success, there's a lot of things that come into play here, but I think one of the first places we have to look is, of course, the case sizing and its wearability on the wrist. With a case size of 38 millimeters, a reasonable thickness, and a compact lug to lug, it's already easy to notice why the Seiko SARB series, especially the SARB033 and the 035, have really become such an enthusiast favorite over the years. The case itself has a couple interesting characteristics, one being its uniquely executed round cushion case style along the side that tapers down at the lugs. In addition, when looking at the case a bit from the side vantage point, we have a stepped or faceted case that gives a level of depth to its design, while also showing the sloping tucking form factor of the lugs and its brush finish on the anterior side, as well as a subdued polish along the side of the case. On my 6¼ inch wrist, or 15.9 centimeters for my metric system friends, I have an amazing fit wearing compact both in length and in thickness, while still managing to establish some presence. Between the lugs, we have a lug width of 20 millimeters, which to me is the best lug width you can really ask for any watch. And I think it's a little secret now to how just versatile these SARB models are when it comes to just straps and pairing them with them. However, for basically my entire time with this piece, I actually wore it on the bracelet. And it has been several years since I've actually worn a SARB factory bracelet, but after sizing it right and factoring in the very low expectations I usually have for Seiko bracelets in general, I have to say this one's not the worst. It comes in with a brushed 3-link style meeting at a 2-button release sign clasp on the underside. The bracelet is breathable and comfy along the underside given its brush finish, and is not a complete hair pull unlike many other affordable bracelets out there. But despite these positive notes, it certainly isn't perfect, as it does only have 2 micro adjustment points, and thankfully I got quite lucky with sizing this actually perfectly on my wrist, but I think many others out there might not be as lucky as I was. In addition, at the clasp, there's a strange occurrence where the clasp extends out quite a bit from the links, causing kind of a gap, which sure, it is on the underside of the wrist, so it won't be seen while you're wearing it. However, it is felt quite a bit when you are kind of going about your day-to-day wear. So when you consider this and the many third-party options available for straps and bracelets for these SARB models, I think these small issues become more of deal breakers. Yet despite them, you have perhaps one of the most versatile cases you can find for this price range, one that is robust to handle the many taxing situations that come with everyday wear, while still looking the business on the dial. Now, to this point in the review, we've kind of been avoiding the elephant in the room, this incredible dial. A dial that shows some of the gems that are made for the Japanese domestic market that are never seen from others around the world. And when first looking at this piece and when I was offered to review this from a follower on the channel, I had only seen this watch around rarely, and despite there being many Seiko models that catch my eye, this one appealed to me quite immediately. The watch reminded me on the surface greatly of the White Grape Oyster Perpetual given its color. The dial with its sunburst finish could probably be best described as a salmon in proper light or pink when kind of in the shadows. It does have a weird effect when changing between different light sources. At the center of the dial, we have the traditional Seiko SARB handset with a simple thin second hand and the hour and minute hands matching both in their size and shape, as well as their use of lume within, with the lume appearing to match that of the dial in its tint, shining brightly when they're both in the dark, providing more backing to this watch's versatile nature of being both sporty and dressy. At the 12 o'clock, we have an applied Seiko logo, and at the 6, the writing of automatic 23 jewels, alluding to the movement within, which we will discuss a little bit more in a moment. But as we're looking at this watch, know that it is a personal watch of a follower of this channel, so don't mind the scratching too much. To match the applied logo though, we have applied hour markers, all filled with lume to match the hands, and a simple date outlined with a steel frame at the 3. But quite rarely do you actually get an exotic style dial like this that is actually more subdued than it is eye-catching for those that are also in the room. As given the softer tones of the dial finish, you're getting a piece that only demands your attention, perhaps making you look down at your wrists a few more times than maybe you should, while surprisingly sustaining a level of versatility when pairing it with different outfits and many scenarios that you send its way. On this channel, we see quite a bit of Seiko movements, and primarily I see 4 typical Seiko calibers that are within watches that I review. First is the 7S26, which is in many of the Seiko 5s of the world and Seiko's entry-level models, as well as the 4R35, which kind of moves its way up into many of the Presage and entry-level professional dive watches from Seiko. You also have the NH35, which has made its way in a ton of microbrand watches. And then for the SARB and the SARX models, you have this 6R15. The 6R15, despite being basic and showing no real decoration, it really is a flagship movement for many of these $500 to $1,000 Seiko models, and certainly improves quite a bit from the 7S26. First, when it comes to its function, and this watch does not have a screw-down crown, we go to the first position, which is going to be hand winding. The second position, the user can go ahead and change the date by rotating counterclockwise. And at the farthest pulled out position, we can adjust all the hands in unison, stopping the second hand in the process. Flipping the watch over, we have an open case back showing the 6R15B in all its glory. But let's be real here for a second. It's nothing extraordinary to look at, but it does serve its purpose. And I've never had any issues with the 6R15s that I've had with many of the watches that I've owned. This 6R15B operates at 21,600 vibrations per hour or 3 hertz. It has an accuracy of -15 to +25 seconds a day out of the box. It's hackable with that extended power reserve on these watches at 50 hours. And these movements are not foolproof, as I've heard people having some issues with the earlier iterations of the movement. But as someone who has owned several watches, again, that have just contained these movements, I've never had any issues and typically see them running well within the accuracy range that Seiko specs these watches out. And with my SARK 045, a watch that I have owned for well over a year and did a review of about a year ago, that watch is still running about 5 to 6 seconds off from perfect time every day. So not too bad for the grand scheme of the whole world of watchmaking as being entry level. Now, just voicing a bit of honesty here, outside of maybe the Seiko SKX, there's probably no other entry-level watch in the world outside of the Seiko SARBs that I've just become more exhausted with. I just see them everywhere, but for a watch that's built to do pretty much everything, I guess that's to be expected. Again, they're not bad watches, but when you see something enough over and over again, you do what I do, it can get a little old after a while. But I will say, a fun thing about Seiko is given their kind of siloed production and marketing within Japan, there are just models that I see out and about almost monthly where I say to myself, wait, what is that? Is that a Seiko? And I think this is a big reason why Seiko is so loved by so many. Given their dominance of mass production, just creating so many JDM models that we never really get to see in different parts of the world, Seiko in all their affordable glory managed to create an unintended level of excitement in just the hunt. And with the Seiko SARB037 being a model that's quite hard to find and being surrounded by a bit of mystery, we might have a Seiko watch that you want, but you just can't have. So guys, if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon, as that's all a great help. So guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.